Jesse Matthews stood before Judge David Schell and one by one pleaded guilty to attempted capital murder, abduction, and sexual penetration with an object. And Jean, it was a move not many saw coming, including the 14 jurors in that jury box. We've been traveling around downtown for a couple minutes now, and it seems like the secondary roads are just completely covered with snow. They are still in the process of conducting interviews, and he says they won't be releasing any information until those are finished. Now, in the meantime, we spent our day checking in with local businesses along Interstate 81. You can see Gander Mountain. Camping World is also over here to see if they had any video of the chase. We got our hands on these search warrants just a few hours ago. Laptops, thumb drives, and even more than $2,000 were seized from this business that you see behind me. From day one, investigators were saying this was going to be very challenging terrain for them to cover. But the newest thing that we found out today, which you did mention, is that Randy Taylor was at this sex shop the day that Alexis Murphy went missing. Investigators say people were trickling outside of Stefano's Saturday morning. Again, a little bit before 2, they started walking down Campbell Avenue and ended up in this lot that sits right next to it. You type in your zip code or where you live. Of course, we're in Danville right now, and you can actually see the system on it. It says right now the temperature about 19 degrees. Jean, the jury never got this case. Entering into an Alford plea means Jesse Matthews acknowledges there is enough evidence to convict him, but it allows him to maintain his innocence. Now, an end to this trial has been a long time coming. This investigation opened up back in 2005, and 10 years later, the victim in this case says she finally has what she's been looking for, and that's justice. It's been an emotional 3 days inside this Fairfax County courthouse for not only the victim, but Jesse Matthews' family as well, and it has finally come to an end. Are you Jesse's father?
Yes.
How do you feel about him taking the plea agreement?
No comments, please. Thank you.
Okay. Are you Jesse's sister? Fairfax Commonwealth's attorney Ray Murrow wanted the case to make it to the jury, but he says he is not upset by the outcome.
This is just part of the process. The defendant has a right under the Virginia Constitution to plead guilty, and the judge honored that right, and that sometimes happens in this business. 14
jurors heard from at least 10 witnesses this week. Some were at the crime scene the night RG was attacked. Others had a part in this nearly decade-long investigation.
I was very confident in the case that we were building.
And Murrow thinks that confidence will carry over to 2 other cases. Now that this trial is over, Matthew will head to Charlottesville. That's where he is facing the death penalty in the death of UVA student Hannah Graham. Murrow thinks his work here has helped lay the groundwork for prosecutors in Charlottesville.
Now he's convicted of about the most serious crimes you can be convicted of, and that might put a little hitch in his giddy up at the next trial, but who's to say?
Matthew will be sentenced on October 2nd. He faces 3 life sentences. DCR says the council knew about some of the problems in 2013. It just didn't know the extent of them. DCR issued temporary permits for at least a year before finally receiving the proper paperwork from the Blue Ridge Mountains Council and its engineers to allow them to begin the work at the campsite. Well, tonight we're hearing from the state engineer on the project as well as from council's scout executive. WDBJ 7 toured Camp Powhatan last week after receiving this news release from the Blue Ridge Mountains Council regarding the future of Lake Powhatan. But DCR dam safety engineer Tom Roberts says the scouts knew there were problems with the dam more than a year ago.
When 2013 came around, the middle section of the spillway was exhibiting failure. It was actually chunks of it. I think the engineer's report says 25 square feet or something in one place lifted out and washed downstream.
Roberts says that raised safety concerns from DCR's end, so the Boy Scouts were told to have their engineers look at the dam and spillway to determine what needed to be fixed.
The study should have been done back in 2013, but for whatever reason it didn't get finished until 2014 in December.
And do you know why it took so long for you guys to receive the paperwork back?
No, that's a question for the owner and the owner's engineer.
So we went to Scout Executive Dan Johnson to ask why they waited so long to return the necessary paperwork.
It's not a matter of waiting. It's working with the state to bring those concerns to something that they both agree to take action on.
Robert says the burden of this recertification was completely on the Boy Scouts and is for any other dam owner. The news release stated the Scouts had 60 days to raise money and do the work because it received the green light from DCR in March of this year. But DCR says it couldn't give the okay for the work until it got the paperwork. Public records obtained by WDBJ 7 show that didn't happen until February of this year as well.
It's been essentially us waiting for the report from the owner's engineer saying if anything needed to be done, and if it did, what exactly needed to be done.
Johnson says it took at least a year because conversations between the engineers and DCR delayed the process. However, he didn't want to go into details.
Take me off camera and let's talk about that.
We're going to do everything on camera.
Okay.
Unless if you don't want to, then we can end the interview. We're just trying to, people are donating their money.
Johnson says even though they knew some work had to be done in 2013, the council's board did not budget for the work in 2014 or 2015, and that's why they are now asking for donations from the community. The news release we received said they needed $300,000 for the project. Johnson told me at the campsite that the figure was wrong and that $250,000 was actually needed for it. However, the Scouts engineer on the project included a cost estimate for the work in the total packet. That total came to $180,000. The work being done here in the Roanoke Valley is going long distances to change one man's life forever. Robbie Camper has made hundreds.
It's just basically time and materials. And then attention to detail.
Even thousands of prosthetics.
You give somebody a sense of normalcy back again.
But this one tugs at the heartstrings a little more, and here's why.
That's pretty amazing. You know, it's necessity is the mother of invention, so people basically do what they need to do to survive.
And that's exactly what this man has been doing in the Dominican Republic, surviving. He lost his leg in a motor scooter accident and has been carrying on with everyday life the only way he knows how, with this wooden leg.
It was very crude, but relatively functional, that he made himself, and it was basically made out of scrap lumber and 2x4s.
But that's all about to change thanks to Doug Call. He's the president of Virginia Prosthetics and has been traveling to the Dominican Republic for the past 8 years to help those who can't help themselves.
You could tell from the lumber, the scrap lumber with paint and nail holes and everything else in it, that he had to salvage in order to be able to scrape enough material to make himself a prosthesis.
So the crew at Virginia Prosthetics is making him a brand new leg, and it all starts here.
As you can see, he's wanding the interior there, making that 3D image. As he moves that wand around, it comes up on the screen.
That 3D image is used to cut an exact replica of his leg in this machine. Then it's off to this room, where plastic is melted and placed on top of the mold. Camper then makes sure all the edges are smooth and buff before everything is put together with a few screws. With a few finishing touches, Camper and the rest of the crew smile, knowing their hard work will get this guy back on the right foot.
He should be able to do anything that he wants to do.